Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs, your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are back on the back of Tottenham Hotspur with back-to-back wins under Ange Postecoglou as they secure a 2-0 win away at Nottingham Forest. We were joking in the green room saying, wouldn't be a little bit of drama in there if it wasn't Tottenham Hotspur. Look, we'll be getting into all things Tottenham on this show. Joining me, I've got my wonderful cast here. I've got the instructor, the conductor, the runner of this crazy epic train. It can be Mr. Lee McQueen. How are you, Macca?
Yeah, man. How you getting on, son? Yeah, all right, mate. All right. Apart from, a little bit of dodges. I'm going to read the stats out later on. We'll put them up on the screen and obviously read them out for the listeners on audio. But it just didn't feel like a game that what the stats portray. I mean, we absolutely battered them all over the pitch on the stats. Didn't feel like that, did it? To be fair. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. And look, another 3 points and rock and roll.
Absolutely. Back on the show. Been a while. Listen, we've got him back on the post-match shows. It's wonderful. Matty Hayes back on our screens. Matt, love to have you back on. Bit of drama in there. We'll be getting into all that. How are you, firstly?
Hey, look, I'm absolutely fantastic. There's nothing worse than starting a weekend when you've lost on a Friday. So we have to be fair and say there's nothing better than starting the weekend by winning on the Friday. And I think this is an important point in our season, because I think for the first 10, 12 games, we were in the honeymoon period. And for the next 5 or 6 games, we were getting grounded. I think now we're at the point where our season is starting to balance out, and we're going to start seeing what we're actually going to be this season under Ange Postecoglou. So it's going to be an important chat about the game and what we might see going forward. Some positives, some negatives, but I'm looking forward to getting into it with you three fantastic football fans.
Bless my man. One man we're delighted to have integrated regularly this season to Last Word on Spurs. We keep bringing him back for more. We love having him on the show. It's the wonderful actor. And many would say, look, the drama follows him wherever he goes because that's what he does for the day job. You could argue, is that what Spurs are doing when this man comes on? It comes to the wonderful TJ Ramini back in our screens. TJ, how are you, my man?
Lovely to see you, boys. Yes, perhaps I've selected wisely with my choice of career following this football team. But listen, dramatic as ever. As Natalie said, trying to look relaxed after yet another dramatic experience on the pitch. But listen, we got the job done. It's lovely to see you. Lee, I haven't seen you for ages, mate. Lovely to see you. And Matty, our first time. So happy days. What a wonderful panel. Happy to be here as ever.
Bless you, my man. Always a pleasure. Guys, before we get into this edition of the show, just a little bit of housekeeping here on Last Word on Spurs. We're delighted to welcome our new sponsor to the show in Beer Passport. Let me tell you a little bit about them briefly. Everyone likes a beer, and if you don't, there's a good chance you will know someone who does. Now, Beer Passport feature 70 unique tap rooms around London where you can get an exclusive offer at each of one of them of a buy one, get one free. 50% off a flight of beer or even a free pint. You'll be drinking the freshest beers directly from the source. You'll get a stamp at each tap room you visit, just like your own passport. If you're partial to a pre-match pint, Beer Passport have several local brewery tap rooms near the ground, including Beavertown, Aura, and Redemption breweries. There are also 5 tap rooms on the Black Horse Beer Mile, which is 1 tube stop away, which can make for a great pre-match tap room crawl. Beer Passport is perfect for those looking to find somewhere to drink before the match, and for those of you who like to get out and about for a drink on non-match days, and I just had also, of course, on away days. So please head to www.beerpassport.com or .co.uk and use the code LDOS for 20% off a passport. That website again, beerpassport.co.uk and LDOS beer for 20% off. Right, guys, we're going to get right into the show. Look, let's start with you, Macca. It is back-to-back wins for Ange Postecoglou's Spurs. Many would argue at what cost. But look, 3 important points. Kulusevski, outstanding. Potentially, I can't believe I'm saying this, maybe Ben Davies' best ever game for Tottenham Hotspur. Yes, he was that good. Bissouma and Udogie unnecessarily now suspended for Tottenham. Forest committing 16 fouls with only 2 yellow cards for Spurs with 11 fouls. 4 yellow cards and a red. That only tells really half the story. Lee.
Is that Rich? Is Rich frozen?
Oh,
that's fine.
Oh,
Crack on them.
Fill in the blanks, Lee.
We've got you. How do you reflect that win? You bring me in. Let's go for it. How do you reflect that win on the City ground?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a weird game. I just put in, we were saying in the green room, weren't we? Like, you read some of the stats out, and we'll probably put them up later, but we battered them on possession, absolutely ruined the passes, considering we had 10 men for the best part of 23 minutes of the game. Shots on target, 6-1. in our favour. Absolutely ruined them all over the place, possession, the lot. And yet it didn't feel like that, did it? It didn't feel like that. It did feel a bit that we were sloppy in certain aspects and giving the ball away. And I mean, put into context, everybody, they had one shot on target, and that one shot on target was what Vicario, I mean, I don't know how he saved it, but he saved it with his feet. This goalkeeper, by the way, is absolutely outstanding. With the goalkeeper who bought the cheap option. You know, that cheap option goalkeeper we purchased. Yeah, he's been brilliant. And so it just didn't feel like that. I think it's one of them where if you watch it back, now you know the result, you can start watching it in a different way. Do you know what I mean? Because there was a lot of nerves. I mean, I don't know if, there's lots of other devices available, right? But I work when I watch, and I had my heart rate going at the game just for fun. And I was like, my heart is like, I'm at like 110, 115 beats per minute, just sitting on the sofa. I'm thinking, why am I so nervous at this thing? But that's what it does to you. So it didn't feel like that. But and I know we'll talk about Bissouma, and rightly so, because he's an idiot, quite frankly. But I have to, pick up what you said about Ben Davies. I put a tweet out on X. Can you do a tweet on X? I don't know, right? But I put one out on there anyway last week after Ben Davies's what I thought was an outstanding performance against Newcastle, and got a couple of the usuals like, oh, you're somebody called me the prawn sandwich brigade, and I don't even have a clue where I sit clearly in the stadium. But there was a couple of comments on it, but in the main, it was a lot of loving for Ben Davies, and rightly so. And there should be enough for this week as well. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And Dejan Kulusevski, I mean, oh my days. I mean, this guy is back to 2021, 22 levels, isn't he? So, look, lots to unpick on there for sure. I mean, I think the general feeling for me in a summary is that it didn't feel like what the stats have said. It didn't feel as comfortable as what the stats are suggesting. Yet they had one shot on target. We've kept a clean sheet with 10 men for 23, 25 minutes or whatever it was. And it's a fantastic result for us. Let's be honest, lads, viewers and listeners. That is a fantastic result. And that's 2 wins on the bounce. It's the first time since October. And we go again. Bring on Everton.
As Lee alludes to the fact there, Matt, bringing you in, it's a big, big victory for Tottenham under difficult circumstance. And let's be honest about it. We were far from our best in terms of the performance and overall. Going to come back. Sorry, guys, I'm going to switch routes in a second. I'll tell you what, I'm not sure what's happening here. But Matt, to come around to you, look, big victory for Tottenham, 2-0 winners. I think we can all admit we were far from our best in terms of an overall performance. But just how crucial, Matt, is the points for us at this stage of the season?
Absolutely crucial. Like I was saying at the top of the show, I think we're reaching a different part of the season now where things are starting to settle down. And I think an important bit of that is showing that we are able to pick up points in a different way. Like Lee was saying, it's a game that on paper and with the stats, we were better than Forest. And, like you said, they might even suggest we dominated on the pitch. I certainly don't think that was the case, but we showed a different side of our game. We showed a bit more game management and a bit more practicality, I suppose, in that we went down to 10 men. We were 2-0 up, and Ange, he went defensive. He brought on Emerson, went 5 at the back. We played a 5-3-1 to see out the game. And that's something that people have, I would say, wrongly criticised Ange Postecoglou for not being able to do. It's as though he doesn't have a plan B. He very clearly does. But we showed something different to be able to grind out that result in the end. And when you're under that constant pressure from a team like Forest, who aren't the best in front of goal, but they're a big physical team, it can be easy to crumble under that. And the save from Vicario as well that Lee mentioned, I think if that goes in, obviously we're having a very, very different conversation. We could be sitting here talking about a 2-2 because who knows how we would have dealt with that pressure and once Forest get up for it a little bit. But I think what the difference between the two teams was we were just more effective when we had possession. And I think the start of the second half is a perfect example of that, because for the first 15-20 minutes of the second half, it was all Forest. They had a lot of possession in our half and our defensive third. We couldn't get out. I thought their midfield was just overpowering ours quite a bit, and Skip not being as good on the ball as a Madison or a Kulusevski definitely contributed to that. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's not one of his strengths, and he was playing a position that doesn't suit him as much as it suits others. But when Forest had a lot of that possession, they had a lot of the momentum in the game. They didn't do anything with it. And then we went up the other end, and the keeper made a couple of good saves. We had a few chances, and then Kulusevski scores. And it's just when we had the ball in that area of the pitch, we were just more effective with it. And that's the difference. And look, it's, you'd expect it when you're playing against a team who are much further down in the table than you. But it's always good to see it come to fruition. And like you said, to pick up 3 points, that's absolutely crucial, because at the end of the season, if we get in the top 4 from 1 or 2 points, I don't think we're going to look back at the 4-1 against Newcastle where we dominated them. We're not going to look back at the 2-0 against Man United where we're comfortable. We're going to look back on the games that could have gone a very, very different direction. And I think this is one of those games.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just to add, Louis Joe Turner on the screen there's no easy away games in this league, and you bang on the money. There's no easy game in the Premier League, let alone if it's home and away. And I think we've seen that, haven't we? I'm not quite sure whether Rick's with us, to be fair, so he might have to come out and come back in again. But TJ, coming around to you, what was your summary really from the match perspective, and what pleased you about the performances of certain players?
Well, I mean, what pleased me, and I'll say straight away, was Matt's appraisal of the game, really succinctly put, and a lot of great, insightful comments as well coming in from the viewers and the listeners. A couple of them as well mentioning that I look relaxed, like I said in the green room. I thought, I was hoping not for an easy victory today, because of course I echo the sentiments of the chaps that there is no such thing as an easy game in the Premier League, and as we prove when we play in cups, there just seems to be no easy games ever, even if you play at someone who's playing in the lower tiers, the lower leagues. But I thought, well, hopefully this will be perhaps not so incident filled, but of course, being Tottenham, it's always incident filled. I mean, number one, I'm delighted with an away victory, and also I echo you as well, Lee. Can you tweet on X? Is it just a post?
I think it's a post now, isn't it?
Who knows, mate? It's a post or a comment, but let's stick with tweet. It has a poetry to it, which we both clearly enjoy. So I put out that we would need to be ruthless today. Forest were absolutely desperate for a result at home, and of course Steve Cooper, who means so very much to that club. Can you imagine what it would mean to a fan base, especially to a club like Forest, with such incredible pedigree? These are champions of Europe. They have that in their locker. Very quick aside, I was watching West Ham playing in the Europa yesterday, very briefly, and their fans were singing "Champions of Europe." And I'm like, what? We'll come
they were singing that against us at the stadium on last Thursday, mate.
You'd be keeping that on the low. Surely. Anyway, I digress. But that just hot. Champions, what are you talking about? Anyway, like the guy in bronze medal, like jumping up and down, going, I made it. No, there's 2 other guys looking at you going, what are you talking about? Anyway, so I was delighted with the 3 points away from home against a side who were always going to get stuck in. And to your point, Matt, they were very physical, right? And we're not one of those teams who doesn't like it up them. We don't mind that, actually. We kind of don't mind the fight. That's something I think that changed in Tottenham's DNA ever since the Battle of the Bridge. Since that game, that kind of soft underbelly to Tottenham, I think, has been eradicated forever. I think we're actually quite a physical side. However, we're not very good at finding the pockets of space when we are being not bullied necessarily, but when we're facing an aggressive low block. Not a passive low block, but a low block where people have obviously been told, don't let anybody turn. I mean, poor old Sonny got lumps kicked out of him today. He's going to be leaving the pitch looking like a piece of Swiss cheese. I mean, poor lad. But we're also a team that can get enticed into a physical altercation, which will result in red cards. And of course, we fell victim for that again today. So to answer your question, Macca, as you ably leapt in while Ricky was dealing with various Wi-Fi issues, delighted with the 3 points away, a well-fought, well-earned victory. And to Matt's point, one of the victories that we'll look back at the end of the season and thought, thank goodness we did the business tonight.
Just got to say, guys, thank you so much to Macca there. I am in the process of trying to retrieve some form of a Wi-Fi connection here, so it may go again before I do a full reboot. But Macca, one thing I want to pick up on is that at the final whistle, Vicario looked to call over all the Spurs defenders into a huddle to celebrate the clean sheet together. Now, no goalkeeper has more clean sheets in the Premier League this season than Vicario. And no goalkeepers made more keeper-sweeper regains in the Premier League this season, being 20. Just how much, again, do we see there, Vicario really making an impact, Lee, on this game? And again, showing in this game why it has been arguably one of the best signings of this season?
Cheap option, mate. You know what I mean? Cheap option. What happens in this club? No, look, I mean, he's been absolutely magnificent. And like I will say, for a bit of balance, not just for show, just for a bit of balance, there was a couple of dodgy moments today, I thought, a little bit. You know, I'm thinking, why aren't you catching some of them? I think there were 2 or 3 he's punching them. That's obviously what he does. And I remember, I think it was against Brentford or maybe one of his YouTube show reels. You'll know this better, Rick or Matty, because you love the transfers. So before we signed him, there was a clip, I think, doing the rounds where he punched the ball out in the middle of he made this outrageous save, like 3 saves on the trot, but it was almost like he punched the second one out and then he had to make a third one because of his mistake of the second one. I don't even remember that. Anyway, that's obviously his style. That's what he does. I think he's mad as a box of frogs, which you have to be as a goalkeeper. I mean that with heart and love when I say that to him, because I absolutely love the bloke. And the save that he made was just it's unbelievable. He's falling backwards. He's there. He's big. He keeps himself big. He doesn't give up on something. Even the one that won't get talked about, it was offside. I mean, he made a magnificent save when the fella was offside, and obviously it doesn't count because it was offside. But he didn't know it was offside. He still had to make the save. So I think Vicario, it's been brilliant in his performances. I think it's very interesting. I think it was in. I can't remember which one it was. It was either Ange's post-match press conference from Newcastle or his pre-match for this match. So many matches, right? But he actually talked about Vicario being a bit of a leader. So I thought that's quite interesting that he then pulled everyone together tonight, the defence, hugging them and bringing them in and celebrating that clean sheet. Because again, statistics-wise, we haven't kept a clean sheet since Luton. A long time ago, since that absolute nightmare.
Age as well, Macca. He's 27, I believe, isn't he, Vic?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, buddy. Exactly.
Such a young team. I think that's part of his quality is that he's 27. You know, he is a grown up.
Exactly that, mate. Yeah, and I think he's got them leadership. He is, like you say, 27 for a goalkeeper as well. He's got years ahead of him, and he's just commanding everything that he does. I think he's been brilliant, and. Yeah, first clean sheet since Luton. Somebody check that. I think that's correct off the top of my head, which is crazy, isn't it, really?
It is one that I've got to pick up on, guys. It's away format. Coming over to you. Most points won away from home in the Premier League away this season. Tottenham, 18 after 9 games. Arsenal, 16 after 8 games. Liverpool, obviously, 16 after 9 games. And 16 for City after 9 games. Now, again, we appreciate, obviously, we're playing on the Friday. So, again, we may find this will change. But, Matt, how impressed have you been with Spurs' away form, not just under Ange, but like I say, really for a while? And I think, there is a newfound resilience to Tottenham, which ultimately has come down from the manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth mentioning in that we've been away to 2 or 3 best teams in the league, in Arsenal and Manchester City, and we haven't been beaten by any of them. I mean, if I'm right, the only away game we've lost this season was against Wolves. And that's a game that we were winning until the 91st minute. So almost, isn't it? Almost unbeaten on the road. And Wolves have been fantastic at home. They brought Liverpool right to the end. And did they get a point against Manchester City, I think, as well? They've been good at home. But it's fantastic. I mean, I'd like if the home form was up there. It's never nice to lose 3 home games in a row. Also, the first ever time I was at a home game that we lost against Villa, which wasn't fun. But that away form is going to be really important. And, you always talk about a team needing to make their home a fortress if they want to achieve anything, whether it's avoiding relegation or kind of putting yourselves back in that top 4 race. But to have that sort of form on the road is huge, because it can be daunting and intimidating sometimes going to not only the big teams, but to, like back 5-6 years ago when you went to Turf Moor, you never wanted to go there. They were always so difficult to beat. But I think this team is so fearless and so kind of invested in what we're doing and kind of behind the manager and what he wants to achieve and what he knows we can achieve. I think that fear is gone. And I think that's a massive factor in being able to go to whatever team we face and being able to take the game to them away from home. One thing that's not really been spoken about, that I haven't seen spoken about in these away games, I remember the first time people really started getting on top of it was against Arsenal. Do you remember Maddison gave the ball away at the edge of the box and Gabriel Jesus went and he skied it. And everyone was saying, you can't do that against the big teams. If you do that against an Arsenal or City or Liverpool too many times, they're going to punish you. But for me, what's worse than that is when you're away to Forest and you do it, because we did it around the half an hour mark tonight. And in those games, the fans, they're up for it. From that moment when they get that ball in the high press, you have a half chance, maybe force the goalkeeper into the save. And for me, there's a moment after half an hour that's where the momentum started to swing, where Forest were able to get back into the game. So I think once we get a bit more confident and assured in playing out from the back, and those errors start to kind of fade away a little bit, I think our away form is going to get even better. What we just need to eliminate is, if you do lose the ball back there, don't go flying in with a knee-high challenge, taking someone out and getting yourself sent off. That's the last thing we need in that situation. If you're going to make that mistake, accept it, deal with what happens next. Don't be overzealous in trying to recover it. But that's a conversation for later. But yeah, look, that away form is fantastic. And again, we need to talk about the small differences that can be made throughout the season, because we're looking at how tight it is at the top of the table. I know everyone has a game in hand. We're only 4 points off the top of the table at the moment. 1 or 2 points can be the difference. If we pick up an extra few points because of that away form,
it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, just think about that. I know the game in hand thing. We are 4 points off the top of the league, having, before this little mini run of two wins, we took 4 points. Or sorry, even before tonight, we took 4 points out of 6 games. What? How is that even possible?
That just shows how incredible the start of the season was, which I know we knew at the time, but it's crazy. It's crazy.
Sorry to interrupt, but yes.
No, I was finished.
Now, I can't work out if TJ's a statue there, or if he can hear us or see us, because he's moved. We've got you, TJ. That was the best still that I've ever seen. I mean, in your filming, I'm sure that's come up a number of times. How long could you stand still for potential roles? It was absolutely superb, I've got to say. I thought due to the Wi-Fi connection, we might have lost you. But
well, listen, like I said, I exhausted so much energy watching what I thought was going to be a relaxing game. I'm just trying to recover, really.
Just chilling back now. Just chilling back. Can I ask you, TJ, one thing I've got to pick up on is that look, King Huddle, a regular viewer listening to Last One on Spurs, makes the point here. 33 points from 17 games with a massive injury crisis. That's an absolutely brilliant return, isn't it, when you consider the fact that some of the trends that Spurs have now faced. I mean, again, we had 4 red cards this season. We're going to come on to that shortly in terms of a discipline issue. But how impressed have you been with that points return, given what Spurs have gone through during this season with, like I say, injuries, suspensions, and the accumulation of playing under a brand new manager, brand new style, new players as well integrated in? How pleased should we be, TJ, by the points return?
I mean, it's such a difficult question to answer. We talked about this last time. The frustrating thing for me and for most Tottenham fans, I'm sure, is losing those winnable games, or drawing those winnable games. To Matty's point, we were winning against Wolves with 91 minutes on the clock, and then you go, not only do you not draw, you lose. And so I just don't think anyone has been particularly outstanding this season, other than us in the first 10 or 12 games. We're really the only outstanding team in the country. And so, of course, we had this dreadful run of form, which Lee was just talking about, where we picked up 4 points from 6 games. And like I said, that's, the staggering 4 points from 6 games. I mean, it's, 6 games. So there's 18 points and, you pick up 4. I mean, it's just remarkable. And yet we're still right in this thing, because nobody has caught fire yet this season. And again, that's why wins today are so vital if we want to stay in and around top 4. I mean, listen, guys, people are going to give me some grief about this, I'm sure. But in all honesty, we're still in the title race. We just are. With the players that we have missing, we're still in the title race.
You can't say that, TJ. What are you on about?
Listen, it's coming. It's coming. But how can we not be? If so Haaland's out for City, and City are nowhere near as good as they were last season. Yes, Arsenal look very good, but with Gabriel Jesus as your number 9, no, I'm not convinced. Liverpool look strong again. Salah, just this unbelievably talismanic player for them. Is he going to continue with that? What happens if he gets injured? What happens if Odegaard gets injured? What happens if Saka gets injured? We've got 8 or 9 injuries, including key injuries to arguably our best players, some of the best players we've had in a generation. And so when they come back and we make a push, around, March, April, heading into May, why not? And so I'm really frustrated with losing silly games, but also feeling quietly confident that we're back in the fight, and we really still look like we can hurt teams like that performance against Newcastle, yes, again, they've been affected by injuries, but that's a tough team to beat. Thank you, Charles, dear boy. And so I'm enthused. Thank you, Jan. I'm enthused.
Just to add to that point, I just want to consider for a second, if the injuries that we had, if Arsenal had them, imagine if instead of Van de Ven it was Saliba, instead of Maddison it was Odegaard. They're nowhere near it.
Mate.
Absolutely nowhere near it.
So if you look at, let's look at Benta, Perisic, Maddison, and like Solomon, right? So just those four. That'd be, like you said, like Arsenal losing Odegaard, Zinchenko. Who else is their central? Rice, and then somebody who not Martinelli, but somebody like Trossard.
Yeah.
You know, then where are they? And look where we are. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paolo. I'm going to jump off.
No, listen. Listen. I mean, at the moment where Spurs are, look, given the fact, listen, we are, as we record this, we're the first game of the weekend. So look, as things stand momentarily, Spurs are level on points with Man City. And on the back of that performance said, look, I'm really, really pleased with both ones and the result. It's a tough place to come. They challenge you in different ways, and we handled that with what they threw at us, and we played some decent football. Worth mentioning, obviously, Brennan Johnson did go down with an injury in that first half. And just said he should be okay. He just got a nasty cut to his head. Nothing that should keep him out. No concussion, just a cut on his head. Obviously, naturally on these shows, when we hear from the manager, we'll bring you more as we get it. And we've heard from Dejan Kulusevski post-match, who has announced that he and his partner are expecting their first child in April. He said, look, on just how good things are for him at the moment, it cannot be better. Everything is fantastic, not only today, but the last few weeks. First half, we had a lot of the ball. We just had to stay patient. Second half, they were strong. It's not easy to play at this ground with the fans' energy. We had the red card, and then we had to show some true character. He was asked what it's like playing under Ange. He said, it's amazing. Training is so fun. I really like Ange as a guy. If I would choose my football, this is the football I would choose. Attack combines a lot and very fun in training sessions. We don't play to lose, but we play to win. We're very positive and we want to get better and better every day. We still lack something mentally, but I think football-wise, we're there at the top. It's big words there, Lee, coming over to you from Dejan Kulusevski there, because, you know, this guy, to be fair, I think everyone could see the potential, but with Decky, I think it's a case of finding that consistently. And I think in recent weeks, we have now seen the fact this guy's going to step up, really, I think, take the game by the mantle. And I think with certain players that we've seen in previous seasons, the big thing missing has been consistency. With Decky, do you think he can ultimately find that?
Yeah, 100%. I think we said it. I don't know if we said it in the show on agreement, did we? So he's getting back to levels of 21, 22. You know, he's 17 appearances in the Premier League. And I actually think even before we started to hit this bit of form, where he's converting goals and assists, I actually think he was going under the radar a little bit, to be fair. I mean, he's scored 5 Premier League goals now. He's got 2 assists. And with the greatest respect to Richie, which we'll come on to him later because I know he's been injured, if Richie could put the ball in the back of the net, the bloke would have had about 7 or 8 assists by now, to be fair, in the first 10 games of the league. You know, his attacking play is actually superb. He's actually had 14 shots on target, Decky has, and only 3 off target. So out of the shots that he's made, actually only 3 of them have gone off target. So he's very accurate when he does take a shot. I would probably say that he needs to take more shots. I mean, today, he powered that in, didn't he? That goal was absolutely brilliant. You know, it went through the goalkeeper's hands, and people might say, "Oh, well, it was a goalkeeper mistake," but it was just so powerful. Like he just put his laces through it. Is that what we say? Put your laces through it, son. And he did, and it was absolutely brilliant. You know, his shooting accuracy is over 80%. His success is around 15%. You know, he's scoring. He's run more than anyone else in the Premier League. Any other Premier League players run more. This reminds me of Christian Eriksen vibes. Now, Christian Eriksen used to run more than any other player and then create as well. He's actually been the most creative player in the Premier League. That's an unbelievable stat, isn't it? Unbelievable. Dejan Kulusevski.
It's so hard to get off the ball as well, Lee. He's a unit. And the kid, remember, he's 23 years old. He's 23, brilliant. An absolute man-child. Yeah. You know, he's just such a handful.
I only think to finish the summary on your question, Rick, I think yes, the consistency is there. I think he can be that. I think the only thing he needs to do is just take more shots because he's got it in his locker to curl him in the top bins, left side, right side. That little extra touch that he takes in the box, them little extra touches that he takes in the box that you think, oh, he's taking an extra touch here that he shouldn't have done. And then all of a sudden, it's like he gets himself right to the byline. It's a little... that second goal for me today reminded me of a goal he scored in that when he first came in that first 6 months that he was playing for us. I think it might have been against Leeds. He's just magnificent, wasn't he, Rick? Absolutely brilliant today.
It was flawless. And I think, again, when you consider the fact that this is a guy that, has had to adjust position, favouring now number 10. He was asked to go out to the right, I think, after the injury to Brennan Johnson. I think, again, you can only judge him for what we've seen in the spate of games under Ange. And I think ultimately there's a real confidence about the way he's playing. And you can see that reflective in the way he, ultimately demonstrates his position across the pitch. I think it's really, really exciting what we're seeing from him. What we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. We've got a good 1,600 to 1,700 of you watching us live. Once again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. Bearing in mind, it's a Friday night live. It's not for TJ. It's a Friday morning live or Friday afternoon live. But the man, listen, keeps riding on for us, and we love him for that. Guys, look, just want to bring out some of the stats from this game before we look at the team. Because, again, I think the game, you look at the fact, the nature of it, if I come around to you, Matt, that, ultimately, when you look at them, it's a really, really mad game. Spurs with the 14 shots, Forest with 15, 6 on target for Tottenham with 1 for Forest, 67% possession for Tottenham, 33 in Forest's favour. Is it one of those balmy games, Matt? Do you feel the stats are reflective of the overall result, in your opinion?
Not at all. The main stat that surprised me is the possession. Because I think it did feel like Forest had, especially through that second half, a lot more of the momentum. But I think, like I was saying earlier, in terms of how effective we were in possession, the shots don't surprise me too much. But I really didn't think we saw that much of the ball throughout the game. So that does surprise me. But I suppose on your question, it is more reflective of the actual result. We made more chances, and like Lee alluded to earlier, there was only one real save that Vicario had to make, which was utterly outrageous, by the way. Turner had a little bit more to do. He made a brilliant save from Brennan Johnson in the first half. He made another one from Kulusevski when he kind of reversed it when he got in off the right-hand side. And on that point, Kulusevski as well, Lee, you mentioned the extra touches. For me, that is just completely indicative of someone who sees the game 4 or 5 steps ahead of everybody else. When he gets into that position, if he wants to get to the byline, he knows if he takes an extra couple of touches in onto his left foot, the defender shifts across to block a shot and opens up the space for him. He does it a lot when he's kind of out near the sideline, where he'll take a few little touches closer to the touchline, draws the defender on, and it opens up that space for Power making that inverted run. He's just so intelligent, and he sees the game a few steps ahead. And having someone like that in your team, even in the absence of James Maddison, even when you don't have, maybe Son wasn't at his best tonight, that's what makes you so effective in possession, because that creativity, it's something that's just there. I know Kulusevski has some off games. The one that always springs to mind for me is that win against Liverpool. But he's just sensational, and that's what shifts those games. And I mean, we know no one in the middle of the park is going to replace Maddison, and I kind of pointed it out a few times tonight that a lot of what Maddison did earlier in the season, when Richarlison was out on the left-hand side, Richarlison pulled right out to the touchline, and he opened up that kind of pocket of space in the inside, in between the right back and centre back, that Maddison went into. I thought a few times Kulusevski could have done that tonight, where he didn't quite do it, and especially in the first half, there's a few moments where I thought he was getting into Doggy's way. But then when he went back out on the right hand side, it's just brilliant that we can't decide which position he's better at, because he's so good at both. Whereas with other players, it might be because they're not good at either. We can't see where we want to play them. But yeah, someone like that is what makes that. It changes that game from 14 shots with 1 on target to 14 with 6 on target, because he not only can create a chance for himself, but he can do it for others.
Yep, totally agree. And just so your eyes don't deceive you there, for our listeners' audio, this won't apply, but for our viewing audience, they may have seen a red card to Forest being added to our stats graphic there. Been a late night for the last one on Spurs team. Probably got a little bit confused then, given 1 each.
Bear in mind, it's what it should have been.
It's a Wi-Fi issue.
Bearing in mind, I think Yates, how did he not get a red card during that game? I mean, my God, the guy was literally riding. I mean, how was he not riding a booking to very, very late all game? Quite incredible, I must say.
He asked for a booking twice, which is supposed to be a yellow on its own. He did that twice.
Yellow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mental.
Ridiculous. And Murillo should have been sent off as well for stamping on Skip. Second yellow.
Yep. I think, again, I mean, you could argue the fact Forest being at home, did that kind of change the proceedings maybe of where that game was going? Maybe you could argue that. TJ, coming around to you, Spurs were unchanged for the fixture, as Ange Postecoglou stuck with the same side that, quite frankly, swept Newcastle United away over the course of last week. Spurs' latest injury concern has been Giovanni Lo Celso, who, as we understand, should be back for next week's home game against Everton, but unfortunately ruled him out of this game against Forest. Richarlison, Pat Massar, of course, came in and did well against Newcastle. And while defence looked well balanced, although Romero and Udogie, as we knew, going into the game would have been wary of picking up a fifth yellow card, which Udogie did. It did see them start the game. Kulusevski continued on that deeper role on the left and looking to add some creativity alongside Sarr and Bissouma. We had obviously the pace of Brennan Johnson, who started, but then ultimately, unfortunately, had to come off, and Heung-min Son right through the middle. One thing to also add is Eric Dyer returned from injury to take his place on the bench. That team read Vicario, Porro Romero, David Udogie, Sarr, Bissouma, and Richarlison, Son, with a bench of Forster, Dyer, Dorrington, Emerson, Skip, Højbjerg, Hill, Donnelly, Valiz, and worth me also adding our team lineups always broken down by the wonderful Ali Gold. TJ, unchanged. Happy about that for you?
Yes, I think we proved against Newcastle that with the extensive injuries that we have at the club, this is the best starting 11 that we can field. I think even if Lo Celso was fit, he wouldn't have started over Bissouma or Sarr or Decky or anybody else. I mean, listen, there were a number of players actually who weren't that great tonight. Red card aside, I didn't think Bissouma had a great game. To Sarr's high standard, I didn't think he had a great game either. Udogie didn't have the same game that he had against Newcastle. Even Porro, and of course, I'm sure we've all read about, Real Madrid ruining a missed opportunity with Pedro Porro and acknowledging that he's within, top 3 or 4 right backs on earth. Which I would absolutely agree with. Not that they had bad games, but they weren't scintillating performances like they were against Newcastle, which is why, again, having these exemplary performances from Decky and Ben Davies, and also, I know we've banged on about Decky, but let's just do it a little bit more. 23 years old, Lee listed all the stats like a champ. But just psychologically as well, to be a 23-year-old young man and to see a creative titan like James Maddison go down, to then be tasked with go and fill that role. That's a really, really tough, if you're an understudy waiting in the wings and, you're looking at, Anthony Hopkins or Gary Oldman or some absolute titan out there plying their trade. And then all of a sudden you get the nod and you have to come on and fill those shoes. Fair play to the guy, just psychologically, mentally as well, like having the mental resilience and fortitude to come on and fill those sizable shoes. And I love this free roaming role that he's been granted. Again, to your point, Rick, when Johnson went off, he did have to sort of shift over to the right. But I also liked how Richie still gave him the opportunity to play down the middle. Richie would go out onto the right. And this cohesion and fraternal instinct, I think, that's starting to really be cultivated in this side. And again, I said it the last show, I'm going to say it again. My apologies if I'm boring your listeners and watchers by saying this. But remember, this is still our first season under Ange. We're not even really halfway through. And these levels of camaraderie and fraternity, brotherhood have really started to gel, which is really, really we were all falling out of a kebab shop at 23, Raj. Excellent. And so I'm really enthused by what I'm seeing. And again, a team decimated by injuries. You look at that lineup, and if we hadn't seen them play, we'd be chewing our fingernails and thinking we're going to get put to the sword here. And we don't get put to the sword. And so I'm delighted with how so many of these players have stepped up and are not only playing, for themselves and for the fans and for the manager, but they really feel like they're playing for something bigger than that. They feel like they're playing like this is a team that can really get things done. And dare I say it again, Macca, we're going to get inundated, win things. That's what they look like.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I mean, the way Spurs started the game, I've got to say, bit edgy, bit shaky. I mean, look, we know Forest is always a difficult place to go. Romero.
Quickly, Rick, to be fair, he got to score that, and Sonny. Like when you say we started, he's got to put that in the back of the net, and he sticks that in the back of the net. Different game. He scores that, don't we? Yeah. No, listen, again, big early chance for Spurs. You picked up on the fact there, and I think I'm discounting the fact that
from that minute onwards, I just felt until Spurs got the goal, wasn't really a great first half. I got to be honest with you. I think we all had our concerns in the way Spurs were playing in that first half. But you're right, Macca. Look, if Son does score that really early chance,
wasn't it, Rick? It was quite, it was quite like it felt slow. It didn't feel like we were playing bad. But it just felt like we were kind of. I don't want to say going through the motions because there was energy there, but it just didn't. Yeah. It wasn't free flowing. Like there was some pockets of one-touch stuff. I mean, Sonny was getting the ball and having 3 people on him. Like Mate said, he's getting kicked. TJ said he's getting kicked to pieces, isn't he? Like Swiss cheese.
You know what? Fair play to Forest there, Lee. You know what I mean? Like they really worked hard today. I think like we weren't at our best, but also that just looked like a team that was working really hard to shut down space. Again, we've played this game, right? Obviously nowhere near the levels of these professionals, but we will say to each other, like, let's not allow them the space. Let's be compact. Let's be aggressive. And you could see them executing the manager's game plan. And bless this manager, he's hanging on by his fingernails, isn't he? God bless him. And again, like I'm looking at a club like Forest and thinking, well, why would you fire this man? Who else are you going to come and get? The guy bleeds red and white and drag them up from the Championship. But you're absolutely right. We didn't look at our swashbuckling best like a team of pirates.
Yeah.
They didn't allow us that space today.
I just think with Jordan makes a comment on there, like Spurs too easily manipulated into scrap. It does feel like that, like the lesser teams almost, or teams want to almost bring us. They don't want us to play our free-flowing football, and rightly so. So we struggle against a low block. There's absolutely no doubt about it. The Palace game. Go and have a look at the stats. That Palace game is pretty mental. The Liverpool game. I know Liverpool don't low block, but they obviously did when they went down to whatever it was, 9 men won it for us. They low blocked Sheffield United. We had to win it in like 98th minute and 100th minute or whatever it was because of their low block. We do struggle with that, and the lesser teams. I agree with that. Like. They almost seem to pull us down to their level. And I don't know whether that's because of the personnel. Like, if you think about today, with Brennan Johnson, I obviously wish him all the best. What a gutter for him, going back to his old club and playing. And again, to be honest, I thought he was within himself as well for the first, to your point, Rick, for the first half. For the first 10, 15 minutes with Brennan himself, I thought he was within himself. He weren't wanting to take someone. Then he started to get into it a bit, and then he's clattered heads. It looked nasty, and that's a real gutter. His dad, big up his dad as well, by the way, because he's in the away end, right? Fully come on you Spurs now, fully coys. Do you know what I mean? Having played over 50 goals, I think it was, or something like that for Forest, he scored. So yeah, I feel for him, and maybe that was the bit where it started to turn back into Forest's favour. But again, when you look at the stats, they had 1 shot on target the whole game. They didn't really trouble us, did they? It's quite mad. It's just doesn't add up, really.
Can I just jump in on a point there about the low blocks? I think it's a really interesting thing, and it's something that obviously we're still struggling with. A Decky helps, missing a Maddison doesn't. But one thing that I've been really impressed with is the aggression, and I mean that in a tactical sense rather than a physical sense, that has allowed us to have a bit more success against low blocks. And it's when we're bombarding these teams, we have a lot of possession in and around the box. We're not trying to force the issue as much as maybe we have in the past. But what's so important is that when the ball is cleared or half cleared, our centre backs are so aggressive in squeezing up and pushing forward to win that ball back. And I spoke about kind of that shift in momentum in the middle of the second half, which eventually led to our goal. And what allowed that to happen was any time the ball was cleared or half cleared, Davis and Romero were sprinting as far forward as they needed, making sure they were winning that loose ball. Sarr came back a couple of times and made it happen. And it even goes back into that Manchester City game, the goal that Lo Celso scored. City have cleared it and start moving off the pitch until Davis gets in there ahead of his man, where previously they would have backed off and sat back and tried to deal with the counter-attack. But we're seeing being so aggressive in that position that when you're keeping these teams penned back, they don't have the time to get back into their shape. They don't have the time to plug the gaps that might have been opened by a defender sprinting out of position to win the ball or whatever. And on the flip side, I think Richarlison on the ball tonight wasn't great. He only completed 9 passes. Thought a few times he picked the wrong option. But out of possession, he was really important. And it's for that same reason when Forest had that momentum, there's one moment in particular where I think it was Ben Davis cleared the ball and it was kind of trickling towards the touchline and the halfway line. Ryan Yates went back to pick up the ball. Absolutely no danger. all of a sudden Richarlison is on his heels and he forces him back to the centre-back, and Richarlison keeps chasing, forces him out to the left-hand side to the centre-back. And that may seem like nothing, it may seem like a failed press by Richarlison, but what that allows us to do is completely regroup at the back, get back into our shape, get back into our system, and Forest have to start trying to pick that lock again. And in what we're doing to...
It sets a precedent as well, doesn't it, Matt?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If that's your centre forward, tracking back, shutting people down like that, being sent on these seemingly interminable, thankless tasks, it just sets that precedent that we can't have any passengers in this team. Other than when Oliver Skipp came on, but I'm sure we'll talk about him later.
Well, I think again, just on that. I mean, I think when Skippy came on with the Brennan, that did start to change it a little bit. And I think I always had the feeling that there's moments in the game, especially when you're away from home, as Louis said earlier, like there's no easy away game in the Premier League. When the game's so tight like that, if you don't put your chance well, put them to the sword, there's always an opportunity. It only takes a dodgy free kick or a yellow card or for the fans to get behind it. And then as soon as the fans get behind it, all of a sudden, like, they start pushing up a 10, 15 yards. And that definitely happened, didn't it? In that first half, probably around the half an hour mark, Forest started to get more of the ball. And that's when you start to think, hello, is Willy Bolly just going to pop up like back post and smash one in with his head like he did all them years ago at Wembley when he was playing for Wolves? Don't forget that one, people. Kick that one out of the blue book. I remember that. We should have been winning that game. We ended up losing it. Willy Bolly, bloody header. You know what I mean? So you look at that stuff and you think, oh, it's going to happen again. But to be fair to the lads, I mean, we did play like 25 minutes with 10 men and it didn't really affect us, did it? Really? In the end, it didn't really, did it?
No, I mean, other than we look like a completely different team, right? But, you're going to look like a different team if you've gone down to 10 and you look a bit wobbly. And also, obviously we were forced to make an injury to yet another attacking player when Johnson came off. But for me, again, because we talked about Skipp in the last game and I said, I don't see him as a Premier League player. I just don't, he's a lovely boy and he's Tottenham through and through. And listen, he's already had an outstanding career. He already has. You're a young man and you've played for your childhood club. I mean, we could only dream to have played for our childhood club, and he's already done it. However, I think he has run his race and he has discovered his level. He just doesn't have the ability to collect the ball at feet and turn either way. He also doesn't have the ability to pick that incisive pass. He just doesn't have. I was really, because obviously I knew I'm coming back on the show. I talked about him in the last episode saying I don't think he's good enough. Sammy Powell came back and said, I do think he's good enough. And then he said, maybe he's good enough to play at, where did he say? He said Everton and Luton. And both of those teams they'll probably get relegated.
Yeah, I think with due respect, TJ, I agree with you to the point. I don't think for a Tottenham show, for a Tottenham player, I'm not sure he's up to the level. But I do think, I think for me, he'd be a good Premier League player for a mid-table side. With no disrespect, like you'd say, a Fulham maybe, or I mean, you dare say like an Everton if they wouldn't have a points deduction.
And they've got better players than him. Maybe. I don't know who it is, mates, but. The point is, to your point, he's not good enough to be at Tottenham Hotspur. Nowhere near good enough to be at Tottenham Hotspur. And when he comes onto the pitch, the dip is sizable. Yeah.
Again, I can't disagree with that. I mean, what I would say is that first half really dominated by a number of stoppages. Obviously, Brennan Johnson obviously went down, wouldn't be playing any further point. I think at the time there was a fact that there was a concern over a concussion, which led to that substitution with Skippy coming onto the field. He told Kulusevski to head over to the right. In that period, we saw Destiny Udogie pick up his 5th yellow card of the season. He'll now miss the Everton match through suspension. I am going to come on to shortly whether we feel there is a discipline issue within the Spurs squad. But look, again, really disappointing to lose the doggy because I think we all agree that, again, when you look at the drop-off of level with relation to Udogie and then the players that could play his role, there's absolutely no doubt about it that it's a real big loss for Everton. Everton, although we're not sure what their result will be this weekend, Everton have been in decent form and it won't be an easy game. Everton at home, Everton have got a really good record away, so don't be kidded thinking that's going to be an easy game for Tottenham. And to not have Udogie there is a real disappointment. But the key is, right bang on half-time, Spurs do go in front, Lee, coming over to you. Richie scoring added time. Kulusevski crossing in from the right. The Brazilian heads in his 3rd goal in 2 games. And to be fair, look, I think we all agree We needed that because that was a really tricky first half. How delighted are you, Lee? Richie, back-to-back games, back-to-back goals for him will do his confidence the world of good, right? And I've got to say, for our listeners on audio, Lee there is providing a pigeon dance.
Just doing a pigeon there for the audio listeners. Look, I mean, I'm really pleased for him. Clearly, the surgery has done something. He's got a spring back in his pigeon steps. See what I did there? It was absolutely, well, it was a flawless cross, wasn't it? Let's be absolutely brutal about that. I mean, that is bread and butter. That is meat and drink. You got all the cliches you want to throw out there. But any striker getting that, I mean, it was absolute perfection from Decky. And Richie does what he needs to do. He's always been good with his head. We've known that. And he's stuck it in the back of the net. Brilliant. Perfect timing right before half time, as you said, Rick. And to be fair, on balance, we definitely deserved to be in front in that first half. There's no doubt about that. Go back and check the stats, as I've been talking about all night. But it was a brilliant header and brilliant for him. I mean, brilliant for Decky. And just it was, I think for me, when you don't know the ins and outs of what's going on in somebody's life, like he's got this injury, we didn't know about it. We didn't know about Son's injury last year. Do you know what I mean? It's very hard. You can only comment and make references to what we see and what we're privy to. That's fair, isn't it? As you know, as doing what we're doing and analysing shows and that sort of stuff, analysing the matches. And Richarlison's been off it. There's no doubt. But now we know he's had surgery. Now we know it was a pelvic problem or pubic bone problem. And now he's had the surgery. He does look different. He feels different. And actually, even if he isn't any different, in his mind he is. And that's massively important, right? So if he feels better about himself, great. And now he's scoring back-to-back goals, as you said, Rick. So he's scored 3 in the last 2. Actually, if you look at his stats this season, as TJ referenced earlier about Gabriel Jesus as well, he's not having a bad season with Richarlison. No. Is it 60 million quid worth? I'm not sure, but you got the stats there, Rick. He's doing all right, isn't he?
You know, look at 4 goals so far this season, all competitions. He overtakes his tally from 22-23. I think the key thing is bringing you in here, Matt. He's finding that form that we all want to see, we all need to see. And look, I think, again, another great stat for him. He's now scored 14 headers since his Premier League debut. Only 4 players have scored more in that time. And look, we asked the fact now for Richie, can he go on a run? Matt, if he plays, now this is the time to be full of confidence. And who next to show his class against then the club that obviously he played for in Everton. So is he coming into form, Matt, at the perfect time for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think I do want to caveat this by saying, you know, it's 2 games. You know, he's had good games for us before. We've had, you know, we all remember those famous 4 games for Matt Doherty, and I know he got injured in the 5th, which is what kind of changed the direction of his form there. But if Richarlison can hit something now, it'll be absolutely huge for us because, you know, he started the season in that front role and it just wasn't quite working out. We shifted him out to the left and Son went in the middle and he started really well in that and then kind of slowly faded away. And we were struggling to find that dynamic in that front 3. Didn't know, first of all, the 3 players that were best there, but then that dynamic and where we'd play who. But now it's 2 games where Richarlison has been down the middle and Son and Johnson either side of him, obviously Kulusevski for a lot of the game today. But I think Lee made an important point. I think it was Lee, forgive me if it wasn't, where you're saying that, you know, kind of Kulusevski went central and Richarlison moved out to that right as well. And I know it's for a different manager, but that versatility is why we signed Richarlison, because he can play anywhere across that front line. And we've needed to find the perfect position for him, and that does seem to be down the middle, especially when you look at his threat in the air. But being able to interchange with the players around him, being able to maybe just drag himself out left a little bit to make that room for Son, or even Udogie with the way how advanced he plays, making that space for the players around him is going to be really important. And I think regardless of his form, for me, he's always been a player that tactically is a great asset to have. You know, he's able to take instruction and follow it to the letter. Whether he pulls off the quality side of things is a different question. But, you know, I spoke about that role he had in making that space for Maddison in the earlier stages of the season. So there is absolutely something there that is beneficial to us. But if he can start to add goals, and I'm not expecting him to be 30 goals a season, but if he can kind of hit that 15 benchmark with the players that we have around him who are going to be contributing to the goals as well, I think there's absolutely space in that team. And it's a headache on for us as well, because we need a centre-back. arguably we're going to need a midfielder, especially if Bissouma continues on the path that he's going. We're going to need a little bit something kind of more backup in left back as well. We don't need that headache of needing to bring in a 50-60 million pound striker too. So if he can hit that form, it's a massive weight off our shoulders, and we'll all be happy to see it as well, because that injury that he's been playing with, it, for me, the timing was weird to go for that surgery mid-season when you knew he was going to have a month off. But if this is the result of it, I'm absolutely delighted, and long may it last.
Amen. Now, Ange was on.
Add on that. Sorry, just to quickly add on with Richarlison, because again, you made brilliant points again, Matty. But I don't think Richarlison got enough credit against Man City as well for that Kulusevski goal, the equaliser, because he pulled 2 defenders away. Go and watch that back. For the fact he's creating space for others, as you just said, and that movement. I don't know if you agree with that one, TJ, as well, but he moved that ball around. I mean, he's got 4 goals and 3 assists now in 14 appearances, and half of them appearances were, well, not even half of them, most of them were with an injury. You know, look at Darwin Núñez, for example. He's got 4 goals and 5 assists. So it's on par. He's got more. He's higher goal scorer and assist maker than Jesus. He's on par with Darwin Núñez. I'm just picking some, big name strikers that are in the Premier League at the moment. And actually, he hasn't even been playing as number 9 the whole season, has he? He's been playing out on the left. He's been dropped appearances. Is not full games. So I think there is. My mates would be laughing at this because I doubled down and then tripled down and then quadrupled down on Richarlison, and then I gave up, and then they was like, there you go, Mackie, you've given up. Now I shouldn't have given up. I should have octagon down. Is that thing? I don't even know how to say it, but I should have just kept going until he comes well. TJ, help me out here, mate. You're the wordsmith. What is 8 times doubling down? Is that what we call it?
I think that my wordsmithery has reached its limits trying to come up with.
Don't worry about it. A lot of people reach out when it comes to Lee, I tell you, with the vocabulary. TJ, to bring you in on this, Ange was asked after the game, he's asked the question, does Richie seem a lot happier now? He said, look, Richie's been good. He was good again in terms of the game. It's not an easy one to come into. We weren't going to get a lot of space in terms of the actual field itself, but his impact is in the box. It was a great ball by Decky, and that's what Richie's really good at. His timing is in the air. His ability to get the ball in the back of the net in those kind of situations was absolutely vital for us. And he was then followed up and asked the question, just seems to love the moment and plays up to that. He said, yeah, I think he's better in space physically and mentally. As I said during the week, it was hard for him, but he soldiered on. At the same time, he knows that people will be assuming that if he's out there, then you're going to perform at a certain level and you can't make excuses. He's definitely thinking a lot better about himself physically and mentally. And for a striker, scoring goals is obviously important. But just his general all-round play has been really good for us over the last couple of weeks. TJ, are we seeing a potential rekindle of a Spurs career where I think many were really writing him off ahead of the January transfer window, where he's now coming into a bit of form and really showing his worth to this team?
Yes, and isn't that lovely? And I'll start with myself. So I sit down to enjoy a big steaming bowl of my own words that I will consume with great zeal and gusto. Yes, I am a fan of the swashbuckling. Thank you, Archangel. So I just think it's a lovely thing. And to Macca's point, I as well gave him so many opportunities just because, there's definitely a player in there. Brazil's number 9 scored that outrageous goal at the World Cup. The goal of the tournament, yada, 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 was I remember him at Watford. One of my dear friends lives over here, lives up the road from me. Andy, big Watford fan, huge Richarlison fan. And of course, he's been brilliant at Everton. So I was delighted to bring him in. We needed a number 9. And that has been such a cursed position for us for so many years. That shirt, that number 9 shirt, comes with a particular hex all of its own. And so I would be so pleased if he just continues on this run of form. And again, to Lee's point, you never really know what's going on, right? We don't know what this niggling injury was causing to poor Richarlison, like how it was hampering his ability. And again, we've used every analogy in the book to describe these players, whether they're race horses or whether they're a Formula One cars or whatever it is. But, to look at either one of those sports, I'll do the cars because I don't actually agree with horse racing, but so if one of your pistons is off by a fraction of a millimeter, you're going to have an enormous drop off in in production and in efficacy. And so now that that's sorted him, if he is now, dare I say it, 100% fit, and this is what he offers us, then there's definitely something there. Again, to Matt's point, if he's a 12 to 15 goal a season, I'll 100% take that, especially if you combine that with his tireless industry. Again, to Matt's point, his work off the ball, and to Lee's point, the fact that he not only dragged 2 defenders out the way, he's one of those players that if you were playing against him, you'd always know when he's around. Always. He's a physical presence. He's probably one of those irritating players as well. He's always on your shoulder, little tugs here and there. You just know that you can't give him an inch because he'll nick the ball off you, not necessarily score a goal, but he'll nick the ball off you and cause you problems. And so having a player like that who can play across the front three and will never stop running for the team is an incredibly valuable asset. So I'm delighted for him. And again, there's nothing more that we love more, if we can allow ourselves to be called football pundits. There's nothing more that we love than being able to eat our words. And so again, I will enjoy that meal with absolute vigor and aplomb.
Just to finish on with Richarlison, if I may be so bold, Rick, because again, the guys made some brilliant points. But the only again negative I would say about him, certainly, in the first half performance, he got pulled, didn't he, when Bissouma went off, was he didn't seem to track back as much as he was doing in the Newcastle game until he scored. Once he scored, he was almost like he felt, oh, okay, I'll go do some running around a bit more. And at one point, he was in the right back position doing a defensive, clearance and stuff. I didn't really see that in the first half, and maybe I'm being ultra critical because there was 3 massive, centre backs that they were playing with, and maybe they just marshalled him really well in the first half. Do you know what I mean? But I just against Newcastle, it felt like maybe again I'm probably answering my own question because he maybe had more space in and around him to be able to get free and go and chase and hustle. I don't know whether you guys felt that. I just didn't feel like he was doing that enough. In today's game.
No, I think, listen, apart from his goal, with no disrespect to him, it's really hard to judge him as a whole because of really you've got to be able to say what he brought to the table. But I mean, we all know, guys, there's games where Harry Kane, for example, would score a goal and that would be the only real highlight. He scored the goal. And I think if Richie's scoring goals, Lee, that's all we care about.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not criticising. That's a fair point. You keep scoring goals, Richie, that's good enough, mate.
Yeah, totally agree. Look, what we are going to do, before we do go for that final break of our show, Ange was asked overall if he could ask anything more about the performance from the players. He said, look, I was really, really pleased with both the win and, again, the place to come and do it. You have to handle the fact that you're going to be challenged in terms of different ways, a lot of balls in the box, throws, free kicks, and you have to deal with all of that. And for the most part, I thought we handled it really, really well. We still played decent football. Within that, created some really good chances, some really good goals, and we showed that character and resilience that I thought we handled it really well. And I think, again, these are the kind of games that if Spurs have got aspirations of top 4 or beyond that, these are the games that you have to come, pick up the points. And I think everyone would have maybe thought when they saw this fixture scheduled, Forest, Friday night, probably not what you want when Forest are a team that I think plays so much better on an evening kickoff at home. That's just my feeling about Forest. I think the fans really galvanise the players, get behind them. And I think you even saw in that last 10, 15, we're going to come on to the sending off, that ultimately, if Forest do get a goal back, that really changes the mood. It changes it and makes it a much more trickier game for Tottenham. But ultimately, Spurs did hold out. But that's what we are going to do next. We are going to go for that final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Guys, there is still around 16 to 1,700 of you watching us here on this last one on Spurs. Thank you so much for all your incredible support for the show. A reminder, if you do need one, that we are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. Right now, they are offering you 4 extra months for free with Nord's state-of-the-art money guarantee. You can get that over at nordvpn.com/LWS. Now, many people ask me, well, look, it's an extra additional security item for you. If you're going abroad, overseas, you want to watch your favourite programmes, whether it be football, soaps, films, it's a great thing to go away, take away as a device and be able to use that as a whole. So can't recommend that enough. Go check them out. Always great partners of ours, NordVPN. And that leads us, guys. You
ain't got yours on tonight, have you?
I haven't, and that's why I'm trying to advertise it to try and make sure I've got it for the next time. There you go. Amen.
Come on, Nord. Come on.
Come on, bring us the Nord. Right. Now, interestingly, second half, Forest thought thought they'd found the leveller, but Elanga was fair way offside. I don't know. I mean, let's go to you, Matt, on this. Is it credit to Tottenham for having an absolute world-class defensive line that I think we saw Villa actually deploy something very similar under Unai Emery? Because I think many were taking a point the fact that there was a real age that took a decision to come there, or what seemed like a really, really basic offside decision, Matt.
I think most people are going to disagree with me on this, and I think this is realism more than negativity. But I think we got quite lucky, because if you watch the angle that they took the offside from, the line in the box is absolutely perfect, and even Unai Emery would look at that and he'd say good evening. But if you look at Udogie, where he's over on the far side dealing with the cross, he's actually a yard or two deeper than the defensive line that we have in the box. So I think it is from what I was looking at, it actually did look quite tight between Elanga and Udogie in the far side. So it may be a little bit overcritical, but I think that defensive line in the box need to be looking at the fact that Udogie is a yard or two deeper and get back in line with him. I think that's why Kouyaté, or was it Bali and Elanga, I think that's why they were so far behind the defensive line that was in there, because they saw that kind of distance between them and Udogie. So for me, we got a little bit lucky. But I do think throughout the course of the season, that line has improved a lot, and we haven't looked as vulnerable on the transition as we did in some games, especially that Chelsea game, which I know is an outlier in itself and can't be kind of looked at in too much of an analytical way. But there were times that Forest had free kicks and we were playing the line halfway up our own defensive half, which was absolutely crazy. But for me, again, I apologise if it seems negative, but I do think we got a little bit lucky with that one.
It's interesting. Again, it kind of split a lot of praise. There's some that say unbelievable the fact that Spurs have got that confidence to play such a high line, especially away from home when you consider Spurs have still got Mickey van der Ven to come back into this team. And I think credit to Ben Davies, because again, you're asking somebody to come in there who is ultimately, and I know Lee's giving those eyes there, who isn't arguably the first choice. That I think we've got to say, look, Ben has come in and been absolutely phenomenal. You have to say that. He has been superb. And I think credit to Ange, because again, you know, he had very little time to decide really what he was going to do after obviously losing Mickey van der Ven and Romero as a partnership. So to bring in Ben Davies, and Jamie Carragher said something very interesting, of course, in the Sky commentary. And the reason why we know Ben Davies is deployed there is because obviously you're having that left foot. It makes it a lot easier for Tottenham to play out from the back, to have a predominantly left-footed person. So Ben has really, really filled in at a crucial time. I think we all know and understand Spurs do need to sign another centre-back. And just said that. I think me and Matt will be imploring that when we have all these wonderful journalists join us come January, that look, we all need to, of course, have centre-back come in and improve Tottenham. It needs to be a fairly decent player. You could argue Ashley Phillips would have maybe had his opportunity had, of course, he not got injured up until now. And TJ, that brings us to very nicely the second goal of the game. Two mistakes from the Forest keeper, Matt Turner, former Arsenal player. Did I say that? Former Arsenal player. He first kicks the ball to Kulusevski, then he parries it to the Swede's powerful shot into the net. It all came from, I must say, TJ, Spurs' really high press that Ange has deployed, and Spurs rightly got their rewards.
Yes, absolutely right. And also, it's the this wonderful Ange approach. What the kids say, no chill. You know, Ange just has no chill. You know, it doesn't matter how many players he's got on the pitch or you know, what the score is, we're always going to go, you know, pedal to the metal and go for that second goal. And again, like we're always going to need that second goal. I mean, even at 2-0, lads, were we sitting there thinking, oh, great, done and dusted? I definitely wasn't, you know. Even at kind of 91, 92 minutes, I was like, God, come on, get over the line. And so, yeah, it was a terrific second goal, and again, you know, Decky was just outstanding today. We've heaped significant praise on him justifiably, and also like just to lace that thing with you. That's his weak foot. Good Lord, like what happens when he hits it like that with his left foot? I mean, you know, you'd need to reinforce the nets. You wouldn't want to be sitting behind the goal, right? And have that dude lace the ball at you. Again, 23-year-old man-child, you know, just an absolute unit. Was delighted for him. And again, you know, the Arsenal connection wasn't lost on me either. And so, yeah, man, I was really pleased with the entire performance. And then again, to Matt's point that he mentioned ages ago, there has been criticism of Ange not having a plan B, and it's just so silly as well. I think you know, when professional football pundits go, "Oh well, you know, this manager doesn't have a plan B." You know, this man's going to have a plan J. He's going to have a plan Q. He's been in the game for decades. You know, he's got plans upon plans. His plans have got plans to have plans that they execute those plans maybe about when planning and then plan.
I play love you, TJ. I play love you.
Of course he does. And so he can be more pragmatic in his approach. But that DNA, and he said, I can't remember when it was. It was during that phase where we were losing every game. He said, listen, the teams that perform consistently in this league have a, dare I say it, plan and stick to it. And that's what he's doing. He's trying to instill a personality and an ethos and a philosophy into this club, which is very much in complete symphony and harmony with the essence of this club and how it was founded. You know, we are, to dare is to do, we are a flair football team since 1882. So to come in and just say, listen, this is how we're going to play our football is working in its first season. And bro, when we were talking about key injuries before, and Matty was saying, you know, imagine Arsenal losing those players, and Maka was saying, oh, you know, Liverpool, you know, I have to say, I'd forgotten about Van der Ven. You know, that'd be like Liverpool losing Van Dijk. That's like Arsenal losing Saliba on top of everybody else. And I think what's really important as well about Ben Davies, and fair play to Ben Davies, man, is that Eric Dyer played alongside Romero for dozens and dozens of games and just didn't take on, because I do believe that Ben Davies has been vastly improved by playing alongside Romero. It's been vastly improved. And again, it's just his personality. So many of the comments as well, these wonderful, insightful comments talking about the professionalism of Ben Davies, how he will just get on with it. If he's going to sit on the bench for 3 months, he'll just say, yes, boss. And you know that he's first into training and the last to leave. And he's disciplined and probably the loveliest man, and will go home to his wife and family and you know, and then wake up the next day and go back into work and get it all done again. And then when he's given his opportunity, he takes them. But he's also really learned. He's really learned. Like Matty was saying, you know, step out, don't allow them space, sprint out of position, don't let them turn. You know, Dyer couldn't do that. And so fair play to Ange and the coaches, fair play to Romero for obviously working with Davies, and then fair play to Ben Davies for taking that all on board and then executing that on the football pitch, because my goodness, it's made a huge difference for us. We really could be in trouble, guys. We could be mid-table right now, and we're right back up there at the top. Fair play to the lad.
Oh, man.
Can I just... Could we, TJ? Could we?
Right
now, he's going to WhatsApp me in a minute.
I love the fact me and Matt are trying to stay fairly calm. We've got TJ on the same show. That is very dangerous. Like putting absinthe, isn't it, on this show to try and put these two together. I tell you, what are we thinking? What are we analysts thinking?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Matt, please go for it.
There's a couple of points there I want to add to, because I agree with absolutely everything TJ said. For me, the most important thing about Ben Davies is the weight that was on his shoulders tonight, because I think his performances up until this point have gradually been getting better, but I think we're going under the radar. Then he has that incredible performance against Newcastle. It makes that crucial clearance against Isak in the first 6 or 7 minutes. And then this entire week, the talk, not only in the press, but from Ange Postecoglou, was that our priority was to get a new centre-back. It was that we need a new centre-back. And the added weight was Postecoglou talking about how fantastic Davies has been. That's not an easy thing to go into a game like this off the back of, but he came out with an even better performance again. I think that professionalism and the mentality is huge in that as well. And on the point about Ange Postecoglou and his apparent lack of plans, aside from his plan Q, as TJ mentioned, for me, it's almost a compliment that they don't realise they're giving, because they seem to be judging Ange Postecoglou as if he's been here his entire life. You know, you're looking at the top 5 at the moment. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp has been there for 8 years, 9 years even. Guardiola has been there 8 years. Arteta has been there 4 or 5 years. Unai Emery has been there over a year. And they're judging Postecoglou in the same way as these managers. For me, that just shows how fantastic he's been since he's come in, that they almost feel like this is an established Postecoglou team. This is a team that he's had enough time to perfect the plan B, C, D, E, F. When in reality, he's just been utterly sensational in getting across that plan A. He's been so effective and so convincing in instilling his philosophies in the teams, in the fan base, and with everyone who's watching Tottenham play, that it's hard not to judge him as if we should be better than we are, because we shouldn't be as good as we are, if that makes sense. It's a weird kind of roundabout thing, but in my eyes, they're accidentally complimenting him, which I'm going to take every day of the week.
Yeah, I must say, just a point on Dejan Kulusevski, because again, I feel like, again, when you host this show, sometimes you go and get the opportunity to glamorise and publicise just how good some of these players are. That's because of the wonderful guests we have on it.
What do you think about Kulusevski? Let's ask you, Rick.
Oh, thanks, mate. No, I just think at the moment, he's owning that spotlight, isn't he? You know, again, today you look at his contribution. First, created the chances for Son, then the second assist for Richie, and now notching, of course, Spurs' second goal of the night. I think when you consider with Kulusevski as well now, he's now scored the same amount of goals in the Premier League for Tottenham as Peter Crouch did, 12, and he's played 8 fewer games. And many, many, I think, say Crouch had a massive formidable impact on Tottenham, given the fact he got Spurs, of course, to the Champions League for Spurs' obviously first occasion. And also, I think I must just add on Kulusevski is that no player has covered more ground in the Premier League than Kulusevski this season, which I don't want to go under the radar, because I think when you consider all of the players out there that, ultimately we regard as being, players that really give everything on the pitch, Kulusevski is one that ultimately does leave everything out on the pitch for Tottenham every time he plays. And I think, again, absolute credit to him, credit to Ange for really making him a real, I'd say, important player in that squad. Because when you consider the fact that, it's a new manager, he wasn't obviously Ange's buy. And I think when you hear the words that he's absolutely loving playing for the manager, that's just down to, again, the fact that what he has, his thoughts on football and Ange's thoughts on football are very much intrinsic and similar. So look, fair credit to him. This is a point of the show now where I think this is going to split a lot of opinions, and it comes to Yves Bissouma. Now, for our watching audience, I'm just going to actually provide you with the still of the incident that occurred and which led to Bissouma being shown a red. Now, it's worth me saying that
looks awful, doesn't it? That looks awful, Rick, doesn't it? Wow. Yeah.
I think the image on first glance does look absolutely terrible. And before I bring in Ange's comments, I think it's worth me pointing out that originally Yves was awarded a yellow card, which then following a VAR review led to a red. And it's his second dismissal of the season. It does mean he'll serve another 3-match ban. I mean, again, when you look at it, and we haven't obviously got it due to copyright reasons, we can't play you the actual full clip of the tackle, but it looked like he was trying to block the pass, but he ended up catching Yates very, very high up on the leg, which again, the still will always be more, how can I put this? It will be obviously more dramatic than the actual
that's actually the point I was making, Rick, like going, oh, that's bad, because actually when you play that in normal time, it don't look bad, and I'm not sure it is a red card. It'd be very interesting to see what everyone else thinks. There's a lot of people in the comments saying it's not a red, it is a red. Like it's a 50-50, it's subjective. That's why it was that a clear and obvious error in real time as a red card. I mean, I don't know, Rick. What do you think? What are you guys thinking?
I think in today's game, and by the fact you've got VAR there, and I'll bring Matt into this and we'll go to TJ next. I think ultimately the player, it's pretty brainless, right? I mean, on the back of the fact you've already been sent off once this season, and the fact that how poor his disciplinary record has been, and by the fact for me, I am yet to see the same player since the Luton game. I don't know what has happened, Matt, since that Luton game, but there can be no argument, Matt, that 6-7 games into the season, Bissouma for me was up there with Declan Rice, I would say, as one of the most consistent performers in his position in the Premier League. I think we were all saying, what is Caicedo worth? If Declan Rice is worth? You watch Bissouma in those first 6-7 games, he was absolutely flawless. Where, Matt, has that player gone? Answer me that before we come on to the tackle, Matt, in your opinion. What's happened there?
I wish I knew. Look, the easy answer for me is at the start of the season, we had 11 players performing to their absolute best. We had 11 players who were playing out of their skin, who were making the correct decision on the pitch. They were obviously putting the work in behind the scenes. I'm not saying Bissouma isn't doing that anymore, but when you have 11 players who are hitting their ceiling every single week, that's not going to last. And I do think Bissouma is underperforming at the moment. I don't think this is his level. But I think he's just hit a rough patch. Maybe he's carrying an injury that we don't know about. I'd almost hope that is the case, because we haven't seen that form, like you mentioned, since the Luton game. And I made the point to you guys in the green room before the show started that if Bissouma was still playing at that level right now, if he was still playing to his absolute maximum, 2 red cards in the season still wouldn't be forgivable. But the fact that he's not performing and he's getting those 2 red cards and 7 yellows, as Darren mentioned, I looked at the stats just before we came online. He only got one red card for Brighton, and it was in the 2021 season. So it's been 3 years since he had a red card before this season.
Can he not play the system, Matt? Is that what it is? Can he actually not play the system? Is Conte,
I think
actually been vindicated?
Don't utter those words in my presence, Lee. How dare you? The Luton red card has nothing to do with the system. The Luton red card was just brainless. It was stupid. He went for a dive. And look, I'd argue the one tonight was brainless as well. You know, I think he took a bad touch. Maybe in his mind he had visions of what happened against Manchester City, and he thought, look, I have to do whatever I can to recover this. And he just went in. I would say I do have to disagree with you, Lee. I do think it was a clear and obvious error from the referee. He's gone over the ball. He's gone studs high into the knee. I think if Yates' leg is planted, that could be a very, very nasty injury. We're lucky that it wasn't from our perspective and from his perspective.
It's a red card on reflection, mate, to be fair.
I also think if there's no VAR, the referee gives a red card anyway. I think referees have gotten too secure and too safe, knowing there's going to be someone checking their work anyway. That
VAR to make
absolutely, and it's why we don't see yellow cards for diving anymore, because they don't want to make the decision on the pitch because someone upstairs or back in Stockley Park will do that for them. I think with no VAR, Bissouma gets sent off from the first moment there, but I think there's a conversation that needs to be had, because 4 red cards for the whole team this season. The other ones, Romero and Udogie, were also just a lack of discipline. We had a lot of yellow cards today, but I think we need to look at the context of those yellow cards rather than the fact that we got yellow cards. Because off the top of my head, Sarr, Son, and Davis were yellow cards that they had to take because they were tactical. They were stopping a counter attack. The best teams do that. So I think it would be remiss of us to just look at the numbers more than the actual context. But there is a problem there, and something that needs to be discussed. And maybe it's just finding that middle ground, because we have been in the past, we've been that team that's been way too passive. We've been, lads, it's only Tottenham. You know, we have been that team and we can't deny it. And like was mentioned, you know, the Battle of the Bridge, there was kind of a mentality shift there. And I don't think we've ever found that perfect space in the middle. But now, because we are so much more aggressive tactically and physically, we need to find that sweet spot. And maybe you are rightly, maybe Bissouma just can't find that sweet spot. Maybe Romero is going to be a player who struggles to do that as well. But I think the difference there is Romero is just so special and so crucial to what we're trying to do that for me, he has a little bit more leeway. I'm not going to forgive him if he keeps doing it. There is a little bit more leeway there for Bissouma. If Bentancur was fit right now, and just imagine for some ridiculous reason Bissouma had that red card rescinded, I'd still be starting Bentancur because he's just more reliable and obviously better as well.
Yeah, so that's a massive point of Bentancur. Sorry, but the massive point of Bentancur, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
he's out. Forget.
Yeah. Joe, again, I mean, TJ bringing you in. Now, look, it's no doubt, and I want to try and play devil's advocate here, it's a red card in the rules, but some would say they all know what's happened there. The ball's got away from him after a bad touch. He's panicked, I think, as Matt's alluded to. He's tried to win a bouncing ball, and it's gone horribly wrong. Many maybe would argue it's not nasty. It's a panic moment of a head loss. I mean, where do you stand for you, TJ? Should he be going with that ball, or should he be going for that ball? Or do you think, given the fact that when you look at the disciplinary for him, and again, forgive me, there was a comment that came through that actually broke down where we are in terms of his disciplinary stats, which I think are massively, massively concerning. He's now got, and thanks to Darren here, 7 yellow cards and 2 reds in 16 games. For any player that you want to rely on over the course of a season, it's horrendous, right? I mean, how can we justify that given how crucial he was in those first 6-7 games where I think we all had him potentially as a candidate for maybe being a player of the season? He was that good to start with, TJ.
Yes. I mean, lots of questions there. Number one, we can't excuse it. You know, a tremendous stat. Thank you, Darren, for sending that in. I mean, a really frightening stat, and almost one of those ones when you read it, you go, that can't be right, can it? But it is. And so it's not unforgivable, because I just don't think, you know, he's not asking for our approval, right? You know, we're football fans. He doesn't work for us. He's, you know, and so it's not, he shouldn't be sort of begging our forgiveness, but it isn't acceptable. You know, it's unprofessional. And so what he should be doing is finding a way to skate that line, you know, especially if you are a player that now has a reputation. Like Romero skated that line today. Hayes was absolutely willing to get him to snap, to get him to bite. There was an opportunity, I think it was early in the first half, where Forest got, I won't say it's a break, but, you know, they were kind of running through to our central defenders, and Romero handled him. It wasn't overly physical, but handled him in the way that he handles him, dribbled the ball out to the halfway line. Do you remember this? And Hayes sprinted up behind him, remember, ran into his back and knocked him over. And what did Romero do? Went to ground and took his free kick. Fantastic. That's what we need those players to do. Understand that this is a mental game and a physical game. Like everything in life, there is physical application and mental application. And so again, Bissouma just kind of has to learn that. Brother, there is no debate about his ability. Again, I was on a couple of shows where we were talking about him. We talked about Caicedo to Chelsea for 142. Well, then Bissouma would have to be 200 million if he's a cent. Would have to be. And as far as Declan Rice, he would dance circles around Declan, any of them, any of those monumental, talismanic central midfielders. His ability and his swagger, dare I say it, he honestly reminds me of Zidane. Now, obviously, honestly, Zidane also had disciplinary issues throughout his career, right? However, he wouldn't jeopardize his teams as often as Bissouma does. He could be that good. He really could. He's got all the tools, all of them, all the turns, all the spins, all the passes. He's got the vision. He's got the physicality. He's got the speed. He's got the balance, the poise. He's a beautiful, beautiful player to watch. Balaic in many ways. But he has to understand you carry an enormous burden of responsibility in this team. If you play in the center of the park, you're constantly going to be the focus. And so he really does have to have a word with himself. I'm glad that he's got 3 or 4 games in order to be able to reflect. And people are saying, oh, I hope Ange gives him a bollocking. Is Ange that kind of person? I don't think he needs to give Biss the hairdryer. I think he just needs to have a conversation with him, just like we're having now. 2 gentlemen sit down with each other and say, listen, we both want the same thing. We both want to win football games. We're both enormously competitive. However, you're going to have to curtail that element of your game because you're too important to me, you're too important to this team, and you're too important to the fan base. So please, with love and respect, iron it out and just play your game. You're good enough without the needless aggression.
Yeah, you know what? Again, it's really hard on Bissouma because, you know, I must say the fact that many are pointing to that there might be something personal going on. That's the difficult thing on this show because, again, we don't know what's happening behind closed doors, and it's not our right to really comment or to analyse what's happening behind closed doors. We can only judge the guy on what he does on a football pitch, and arguably, again, without sounding like a broken record, I think many would agree he's not been the same player that we have seen since the Luton game. And we don't know the reason for that. We can't factor as to why that is. Many are alluding to the fact that Spurs do have some form of a disciplinary problem. It was a full red card for Tottenham this season. Only Liverpool can match them for that in terms of the indiscipline. And Postecoglou was asked directly on the red card of Bissouma. He said, look, no, I think they slowed it down. They saw what they saw, and we had to cop it. On there being a disciplinary issue, he said, well, it's an issue, but it's not so much discipline. Like I say, I haven't seen a slowed down version, but it's just a desperate lunge more than anything malicious. The guys are having to adapt to learn to play our football without crossing a line, but I love the commitment they showed. Unfortunately, we paid a price because it's not just this game. He obviously misses a big chunk of football, but it is what it is. And just to put that into context in terms of missing a chunk, we don't expect now to see Bissouma back in a Spurs shirt until February at the earliest. When you consider we've got the AFCON as well, he misses 3 games. It means that we're not going to see Bissouma for at least 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks potentially.
Injured, mightn't he? Do you know what I mean? You might just write it off as an injury. You know what I mean? It's as bad as a Bissouma injury, isn't it?
Lee, do we have final subject on the show, Lee? Do we have a disciplinary issue at Tottenham generally for you? Is it a disciplinary problem we've got?
Arsenal had this a few years ago, didn't I? Way back in the day, actually, when I think Wenger was building a team with them. And that, you know, it's dirty Arsenal and all that, or maybe people were just singing that because, you know, it's Arsenal. I don't know. But they, you know, people were getting sent off and whatever. Have we got a problem? It's a really good question. I mean, if you think about it, we've had a doggy sent off. He's also now got banned as well. Bissouma's got sent off twice. He's obviously got 6-7 yellows, as Darren said earlier as well. Romero's been sent off as well. So, I mean, the question is, I should have this in the blue book. I actually haven't got it. But how many times have we had players sent off in one season? I mean, is this a record for us? We've had 3 players sent off.
Yeah, I think we've had more than that. But listen, in terms of a starting point, it's a concern, isn't it? I mean, I think Ange is making a point, trying to adapt to his football.
Aren't you? So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's maybe I will put it down to we're learning a new way of playing, which is a risky way of playing, and I think the sending offs have been where the ball's got away from one of the players a little bit, and they've lunged into to try and rectify that what would be a mistake. They're playing quite close-knit, quick football where the triangles and the Ange ball essentially is bringing on the high press, and they have to move the ball quickly. And sometimes they don't put the right pass, and then they lunge back to get it back. See where I'm coming from? And so I'm putting it down to that rather than this. I don't think even Romero, you can at me or insta me if you want on this point. I'll put my Instagram on there now, trying to big that account up now. But no, I mean you could on this point that even you could argue that Romero hasn't gone in to do people. Like, I don't think Bissouma went in to do the fella today. Doggy, when he got sent off, definitely didn't try to do Sterling. Do you know what I mean? But whether or not you tried to do him or not, it's a red card, isn't it? Like in the day and age, and you can't do it. So I suppose on that point, it is a discipline issue. You can't do that in the Premier League. You can't do it because you get sent off. So don't do it. Simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Look, what I don't want to do is detract away as we look to close the show from some of these star-studded performances. I think Ben Davies doesn't get many plaudits on this show. I want Ben to get the plaudits because he was absolutely phenomenal during the game. And again, when you're asking players to put their body on the line, he's one. Another one we have to add, and we made the point earlier on, he's a little bit shaky as well. But Guillermo Vicario, when you consider what Spurs spent on this goalkeeper, Matt there, I can see him. He's in disbelief still at the price tag. It is absolutely wonderful when you look at that guy. These are the games that ultimately keepers are going to come under the most amount of pressure. Friday night away, Nottingham Forest, vociferous crowd on your back to come through these kind of venues to me are real confidence boost to come. And we're midway through the season, right? So again, massive credit to him. Pedro Porro, again, I think goes along as an unsung hero. I think Pedro Porro, again, had a fairly strong game. And, it'll be interesting to see how Spurs do ride these next couple of weeks now. Everton, it's not going to be an easy home game for Tottenham. They've got a really decent away record under Sean Dyche. But if you're asking Spurs fans where you want to be, Spurs are where they want to be in terms of in amongst that top four race coming into that Christmas period. We've got the FA Cup to come, which again will be very, very exciting for those that love the FA Cup. Me being an old man, loves, of course, the FA Cup coming into play. You guys know how I feel about that. So I think Spurs go into this Christmas period really buoyant, really important away win. As we said at the top of this show, now Spurs, the most away wins in the Premier League. It feels like the right place for Spurs to be. Matt, closing it with you. Just how pleased have you been with Spurs? Bouncing back with 2 wins under Ange, really showing that character and grit as we enter now a really, really big Christmas period for the football club.
I think what's first of all important to say for me is that I'm not surprised that we've bounced back like this. Like even we call it the bad form and the bad run of results, bar the Wolves game and the second half of the West Ham game, we played very good football and we still showed progress from where we were. Like I'd say the first half against Aston Villa, we were better than we were in most of the games that we won. So there was still progress there, even though the results weren't coming. But it's so important to have that form going into the Christmas period. And up until the last week or so, we were playing 1 game a week, so it was always going to be a big challenge. Even if we had our full squad, it was going to be a challenge coming into this hectic period with more and more games. But the fact that we've kicked it off well with some good performances and with some good results is going to be really, really important. And like we were saying at the top of the show, Man City aren't at their best. Arsenal have dropped a couple of points in the last few weeks. Liverpool, while they're looking really, really strong now, that can change in a moment's notice if any injury comes in there. So this is going to be a really important part of the season. And coming out the other side of it, we're going to really see how things are going to shape up and whether we're actually in a title race as TJ is hoping or a Champions League race. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to watching Tottenham again, and that's just so important. I came home from work tonight and I was giddy and I couldn't stop chanting. It's been a while since I was like that. It used to be a chore last season, the season before, to watch it. So yeah, it's nice to be back in a positive space.
Oh man, Matt, always a pleasure. And to echo your words you said there, Gary Neville said, isn't it great watching Tottenham playing such fantastic football? And I think, when you're having the neutrals that you're loving saying that, Jamie Carragher, that obviously, they watch every team in the league and they've got strong affinity to their own clubs. it's something now that you've got that feeling back of Tottenham really being the team everybody wants to watch. TJ, mate, always only having you back here because we love to watch you. I know many, I've got to say, many message me and say, can I just say, I'll do an hour and a half of TJ just watching his hands go, even just before the post-match.
Wasn't it Lee who was saying, like, during one episode of Last Word on Spurs, I probably, like, grounded like 17 aeroplanes or something.
We got the weather for the 14 countries that those are watching us in. So, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. We take that every week. Mate, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And just how important, TJ, you're back with us for Everton. How important is it now, coming to that Christmas period now, to really, really start accumulating the points? And we know it's going to be a tricky period. We're going to lose Sonny. We're going to lose Bissouma. We're going to lose Sarr. Over, obviously, of course, this AFCON period. Spurs need to really, really have a strong end to December into January, right?
Yes, we do. And I mean, listen, let's the point that we were making when you showed the starting 11 again. If we were to witness that starting 11 before, is that me? Okay, I'll take it. Anyway, if we were to look at that starting 11 without,
I'll take that.
we'll both take that, Lee. Yeah,
We're taking that.
We'll post that on your Instagram account. We're picking up Lee's Instagram account tonight. Again, if we were to look at that starting 11, we probably think that, well, that team doesn't look like they're up to much. And yet we are, to Matt's point, surprisingly effective, overperforming to beyond anyone's expectations, really. And so when we lose those players, very important that the other players, like Decky has done, like Pedro Porro has done, like Ben Davies did so wonderfully this evening, like Sarr has done, and bless his heart, like Richie has done, come into this team with a point to prove, come into this team and show that you want to fight. Again, to your point, Rick, I don't want anything negative, but I do think Højbjerg, just doesn't seem like he wants to be there anymore. Like, if you come on, his attitude just looks poor. He gives the ball away and just doesn't look as combative as he typically was. And so don't be like that. Be like Ben Davies. Be like Richie. Work to get better. Whilst those players are gone, step up and show that we have a point to prove. Step up and do show we believe that we're still in a title race, whether we are or not. And so, yes, it's terribly, terribly important that we end the year as we started the year, with positivity and with zeal and with gusto and with swashbuckling, scintillating football. Thank goodness it's back. Thank you as ever for having me on the show. And I have to say, Matt, our first time ever being on the show together, I love listening to you, brother. Like, what an insightful, intelligent, articulate young man you are. A great pleasure. Maka, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. And Lee, much love as always. Thank you.
A compliment from TJ has gone straight in my CV. Oh my God. Thank you, TJ. Absolute pleasure meeting you.
Just play him the real, Matt. Just play him this real. You'll walk out interview. You'll be absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
Lee, I think it's fair to say, mate, this crazy train is right back on the realms of some form of a carriage now. 2 back-to-back wins. We're back on the rails. And I got to say, Spurs entering this period now, of course, with real optimism and hope. I think we all now say, look, no more injuries, no more suspensions. I think, again, we say at the top of the show, I said, Spurs won at what cost? They've lost Bissouma now for another 3. We hope Brennan Johnson will be okay. But Lee, we have to find a way now, it sounds mad, to battle through to January. We can't afford to lose any more bodies, let alone players, right? We are really, really now, like I say, once again, in a difficult situation player-wise.
Yeah, he must be pulling his hair out. I mean, he's just been talking about, the fact that we've got Pat back and we've got Richarlison back and he's helping the team, and now we've lost Bissouma. And now we've lost Destiny. I mean, my love for Destiny. I absolutely love him. I didn't think he had his best game tonight. And obviously he's got booked as well. So, you know what I mean? It's like, at the end of the day, you look at that and you just think he must be pulling his hair out. He's now got to go back to Emerson Wells, a left back, or he's going to put Ben Davies out there as a left back, where he's been playing so well as a left-sided centre-back. And he's good, all of a sudden that defence that we had, that we was only missing 1 player, is now we're going to be missing 2 of them again. And, and our holding midfielder. So you can now have a scenario where we've got Højbjerg playing with Ben Davies and, Royale. And how did that work out for us at Wolves, as an example, right? Not great. So, it is frustrating. What I would say about Ben Davies, and I've been meaning to say this, I keep forgetting it. Ben Davies is our version of James Milner. That is what he is. He is James Milner.
That is spot on, mate. Absolutely spot on. Well said.
That is the one. The way to describe Ben Davies, Tottenham Hotspur, is James Milner. Like he would come in, he'd play multiple positions. He don't really ever let you down. You know, no one's ever going to take, with great respect, a James Milner over a Virgil van Dijk or going to sign a Virgil van Dijk. So I still want new centre backs in January, 100%. But he's doing what he's meant to be doing, and you know you can't argue with him on that. I think tonight was massively important for that run. It's really annoying with Bissouma because he now doesn't get to face his old club in terms of Brighton, and that would have been great. And now we're thin on numbers again. And I know you're itching to say it, Rick, because Matty Hayes is on here as well. The transfer window's opening soon. You cannot wait, son. Look at you, boys. You can't wait. It's like Christmas come early. So look, I mean, I think we will delve into there. And actually, did we talk about it on the last show, the preview, when we said about which positions would we go for? I think now with the Bissouma situation, you are probably looking at. I was looking at a left winger and a centre back. I'm now probably looking at a centre back and another midfielder.
Yeah, I think honestly now,
That's how quick it can change, right?
Yeah, I think again when you look at it, I think Ange has said himself, you know, he wouldn't rule out a central midfielder coming in because ultimately you look at Spurs now in terms of positions, where again you would have said at the start of the season, you know, centre back has always been the priority, but maybe someone would have said maybe a forward. Richie's now obviously got back-to-back, obviously goals, 3 in his last 4. You know, maybe that's not the area you need to look at. Maybe it will be another midfielder. So look, and Matt.
Wonder, just quickly on that, I know because you're doing loads of shows on this, and somebody gave it a shout earlier, and it's not new because he's been floating about and he used to play for Ange or whatever at Celtic. But I do wonder whether or not they've already lined up a Jota type to come in. I do find it really strange, if they haven't, as an example, I do find it really strange that with all Ange's contacts in, you know, Asia, Southeast Asia, all the stuff that he did with bringing loads of players from Southeast Asia and stuff like that into Scotland, we haven't gone in for any type of Asian or Southeast Asian player. I find that absolutely bonkers. I know Jota isn't. I understand that, but I just find it quite strange that we haven't done that. So I'm wondering in January whether we've actually already got something lined up, or is that hope more than an expectation, knowing this board? Sometimes they leave it to the last minute, and we cannot do that. No. I've argued on this very show with you the last January transfer window about, is that, you know, do we need to get him in straight away?
Oh, God. Well,
I actually agree with you now, mate. We definitely need them in. Yeah. January 1st, we need to walk through the door. Whoever they need, walk straight through the door, done. No messing around. Yeah.
Well, I think we saw, just to close this, I mean, we saw Ange saying in his pre-match press conference that he's asked Santa very kindly for potential early signings. So, look, hopefully Santa is listening and Mr. Daniel Levy and Spurs do get the business done, because ultimately, for what the guy has given to Spurs so far, he's owed that, in my opinion. When you think about the suspensions and the injuries and implementing a new way of football, a new style, a new play with a new team, the guy deserves that. So, look, we hope and pray. I want to say a massive thank you to this wonderful panel. Matt, thank you so much, my man. Love to have you back on. We've loved having Matt back on for the post-match. Matt, thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure being back. Let's hope they're all as positive as this one.
Absolutely, mate. Amen. And look, the wonderful TJ Ramini blessing us with his presence. Can I just say it's been wonderful getting this man on regularly to Last Word on Spurs. The time difference massively helping us at the moment. Let's hope it stays that way. TJ, thank you so much, my man.
Thank you, Rick. Lovely to see you all. And what a wonderful, wonderful panel today. Really, really a pleasurable experience. Wonderful comments as well. And just before I sign off, a couple of people on the comments saying, please like it, like the show. Like if you've enjoyed the show, and we've had some wonderfully complimentary remarks from our watchers and listeners, please just press that like button. It probably makes an enormous difference to the health of the program that you're supporting. And listen, Ricky works tirelessly, you know, and he's a family man. And, you know, it's probably, what is it, nearly midnight back home?
Yeah, so just gone past 12.
Take a nanosecond, please, dear listeners and watchers, please do, and just press the like button, because I'm sure that Ricky would appreciate that enormously, as we all do, and we appreciate you enormously, Ricky. Lots of love to you, brother. Thank you. I'll see you again.
Love back to my man. Macca, it is the crazy train. It is the Rouse back on, as we said. Busy Christmas coming, mate. Thank you so much, my man.
Loving it, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to be on the next one. My next, actually, I'm not on the. I might be on a preview. I can't remember, but our next game's Everton, so I'm going to that. So hopefully we'll get some good wins, good videos. We'll stick them out on the socials, and we'll all have a very happy Christmas. Being back, hopefully in the top 4, maybe.
Oh man, fingers crossed. Listen, keep our fingers crossed. No more injuries, no more suspensions, please. From the wonderful Lee McQueen, from the brilliant Matty Hayes, from the superb TJ Ramini. We've been the last word on Spurs. I don't think it's too early. We're going to wish you a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you, obviously, of course, during the week. But from all of us here, guys, keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you